Within a 24-hour time period, BYD said a couple of interesting things. And one of those, the first of them, is that they're going to build a battery factory in India. Along with the EV factory they're building in India, they want to take over the Indian car market. They want to make affordable EVs in India and then ship them around that area and to right-hand drive car markets, I believe. Now, in addition to that, BYD revealed that they increased profits by 225%. Wow. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Sam Evans, coming to you from Australia, but I've spent a bit of time in China, and I have been following BYD since I started this YouTube channel. I made videos about BYD, I don't know when it was, just over 2 years ago when I started the channel. A lot of people are like, who the hell are BYD? Never heard of this company before. Why on earth? You must work for the Chinese government making these ridiculous videos about this car company, BYD. Never heard of them. All of a sudden, well, look what happened within 2 years. Things have completely changed. Now, during that period of time, there was numerous videos that I saw from, I believe, clickbait Tesla YouTube channels telling you BYD they were actually making a loss. They weren't making a profit. They were lying, all kinds of stuff. Like, I get sent this stuff, and it's quite frustrating because I find it hard to have the time to make the videos that we put together every day because it does take a lot of time. And when I'm getting distracted with these emails of people sending me clickbait trash on YouTube where people just make things up, like the whole story where they made up the whole tens of thousands of BYD EVs sitting in parking lots, rusting away because it was this big scam BYD had, it was all completely made up. I exposed all this complete bullshit in a video, but unfortunately, it's just a waste of my time even creating this stuff if these idiots didn't make up stuff on YouTube. And they've done this. BYD seems to be the #1 target of these Chinese clickbaiters who call themselves experts, and people believe they're experts. They're just people, they're just clowns who are suckering you into watching utter nonsense. So if you see a clickbait video like this and you discover later that they've made everything up, I mean, for example, in that video, almost every car they showed had a petrol tank in it, right? EVs have petrol tanks. Well, that's certainly news to me. Anyway, the cars shown in the video were from a group of fleet companies that went bankrupt back in 2018. Nothing to do with BYD, just completely made up. So BYD are actually doing very well. Yes, sure, they don't make as much profit as Tesla. That's true. But hey, they are one of 2 electric car companies in the world actually making a profit. I mean, one of 2 car companies in the world making a profit on EV sales, which is remarkable in and of itself. It's actually incredible. We should really support that and celebrate that because BYD is not a Chinese owned. They're not owned by the Chinese government. They're owned by individual shareholders. Many of those are in the US. Many of them are in Australia. Basically, the world owns BYD. Yes, its shareholder Wang Shanfu owns a significant percentage. So do other shareholders from the company who started the company. But by and large, the company is owned by hedge funds, by Warren Buffett, by Berkshire Hathaway. It's owned by ordinary investors. It's not owned by the Chinese government. I'm sick of hearing this garbage from these morons. Oh, BYD, I mean, they're in China, so they must be owned by the Chinese government. Everything in China is owned by the Chinese government. It's all one big scheme. I'm telling you, yeah, actually look at the facts. The facts are BYD is making a profit, a pretty good profit, and no, they're not owned by the Chinese government. So how much money did they make? We don't know exactly. They've shared their preliminary results. They say net profit has grown strongly in the second quarter on the back of a sharp increase in EV sales and plug-in hybrid sales as well, and battery sales. The company expects its net profit attributable to shareholders in the first half of the year to be 10.5 billion to 11.7 billion RMB, which is around about 1.7 billion US dollars. So not a whole heap, but it's not too bad. And it is an increase of between 192 to 225%, somewhere within those numbers. It could be 225, could be 192. We don't know exactly yet until within a few days we hear the exact numbers. But either way, it looks like they made a profit, an increase in profit in 12 months of 200%. So if they did this again, well, yeah, they're going to be making billions of dollars in the same quarter next year. What this means as well is that BYD will have essentially doubled or nearly doubled its profits versus the first quarter of this year. That's a really good result because especially when you consider the fact that BYD's cars, 95% of them are sold in China And the Chinese car market has by far its biggest sales of the year in the final 6 months of the year. The first 6 months, sales are relatively slow. The last 6 months are always, and they always have been every year, single year since we have data for the Chinese car market, they've always been much bigger for the third quarter and then much bigger again for the fourth quarter of the year. So this would mean BYD will have made more profit in the second quarter of this year than they have for any quarter in the company's history. Now, BYD delivered 703,561 vehicles. Just over 50% of those were fully electric. Around 49% were plug-in hybrids in the second quarter of the year. And that's an increase of 98.2% year over year. Means as well that their deliveries have increased by 27.44% versus the first quarter of the year. How many cars have BYD delivered this year in total? Well, that's a number that we need to clarify and be very particular, because the media are not. The media will constantly try to clickbait you with these sales and present them in a way that is not factually accurate, which is, I find, quite annoying, to be honest. BYD delivered 1,255,637 NEVs, new energy vehicles. That means half of those, or just over half of them, were fully electric. The rest of them were plug-in hybrids. However, that does mean that their vehicle deliveries have increased 96% versus last year. So what does that mean? Well, it means that BYD, they have delivered around about 650,000 fully electric cars and about 600,000 plug-in hybrids. Have they overtaken Tesla? Not yet. I mean, yes, in total car deliveries, they absolutely have. Got to keep in mind though, a lot of those cars are like $10,000 each, so they're not really high margin cars. In terms of profit, have they overtaken Tesla? No. In terms of fully electric car sales, have they overtaken Tesla? No, they have not. Will they? Probably in the future, considering, a lot of their cars are more affordable than Tesla vehicles. They have about 67,000 different models. I'm exaggerating enormously, but they have so many models that it's really hard to keep track of them. And they're constantly changing those models and changing the names of those models. And imagine if they only had, say, 6 or 7 or 8 key models that they focused on. Imagine what their profits would be. I mean, their profits could be double what they are now. But BYD, I think they're a little bit, I wouldn't say scatterbrained, but they're just spreading themselves a bit thin. They make so many different products. The company, they make masks. They make all kinds of things. They make solar panels. They make iPads. They make literally, you'll lose track of all the things they make if you try to track them. They make ternary batteries. They make lithium iron phosphate blade batteries. They make batteries for other companies. They make batteries for themselves. They have a car factory they're building in Hungary. They're building one in India. They're building battery factories all over China. There's so many things they're doing. It's hard to keep track of them. But either way, this company is doing incredibly well. Their CEO, Wang Chanfu, had a tough childhood. He was actually an orphan. Both of his parents died when he was young, and he was brought up by his brother and his sister. If you want to know his story, I made a video about it. It's really, really interesting. I'll put a link in the description below.